Well, there's controversy brewing once more. Satya Pundit Dr. Brahmanand Ramachan said East Indians are under siege by criminals, and Pundit Satyanand Maharaj said the perpetrators of these crimes are urban youth from the East-West corridor. Now, joining me this morning to give clarification to this situation and respond to the controversy, the response brought forward following these statements, is Pundit Satyanand Maharaj, spiritual head of the Satya Anand Ashram in Aranguez. Good morning, Pundit.
Hi, good morning to you, and of course, good morning to all your viewers this morning on WESN.
Well, Pundit, let's start with the comments, and I quote from the conference held 2 days ago. All the crime we have been facing in Aranguez is being committed by the urban youth, the miscreants who occupy the East-West corridor. Could you please clarify by what you refer to as urban youth and miscreants?
What was actually said was urban youth gang member. Right, so you want to clarify that?
Sure.
That is on record. It's on my Facebook page. It's on the Brahmanand's page. I can make that available to you. So it's urban youth gang member, which is a real thing. This morning I woke up to Senior Superintendent Ed was saying there's no statistics to corroborate our claims, which is interesting because, I don't need statistics. I need victims, and I have victims. And it goes back years, and it's been getting steadily worse. Yesterday, Pundit Satyanand Maharaj, he's affectionately called Pundit Child, a very, very gentle individual, 65 years old, comes back from the bank at noon, and he's robbed by exactly what we described. Three urban youth gang members. They were waiting for him at his home.
What are urban youth gang members? That's the clarification I'm seeking.
Well, you see, everybody wants me to pin the tail on the donkey. And it is as though that the police themselves are woefully unaware of who the criminals are in this country. And, I wake up to this piece of news that the senior superintendent says that there's no evidence to corroborate what we're saying. I find that very difficult to believe. What he should have said is what is real, in that in Trinidad and Tobago, evidence is not collected. This kind of data is not collected. And soon later today on, I'll release another piece where we will look at that you cannot find data on crime and criminality. But like I said, we have evidence by way of victims. And the victims, just recently, on the same day during Easter vacation, a family, the Ghani family, was terrorized by 4 criminals. 3 were caught, 1 was killed. All matched the description given. Yes, and I still cannot understand the outrage that why good people, decent people, and the majority of Trinidadians are good, decent people, regardless of what description they match or what ethnicity, that they an entire community feels that this is a racist remark. When we call it as it is, everyone gets upset. But the reality is that when Mukesh was robbed coming back from the bank, it was 3 people that matched that particular description. When the shop was robbed, the plumbing shop was robbed, they matched that description. When 5 bandits were held,
but Pundit, you're saying
they matched that description.
You're saying people get upset with you calling it as it is. The question is, though, you went on to say that East Indian people are being attacked. Many East Indian communities are beginning to take action.
What I said was, and it was specifically to address, and things are taken out of context conveniently. And I want to chastise the media, because the media seems to want to work and create news rather than report the news. We held a meeting to discuss primarily and specifically the crime surge in Aranguez. Now,
yes,
others would have you believe that Aranguez is a heavily mixed community. It's not a heavily mixed community. It still remains largely an Indo community. There's a larger amount of rental units now than in the past, granted, but it is still largely Indo-Trinidadian community. The business community in Aranguez is an Indo-Trinidadian community. And we have found ourselves, they found themselves as targets of crime, robbery with gun, robbery with violence. And again, coming back to the police who are there to police us, when they make statements that there is no evidence, what they are telling the victims is that, we really care too much about you because this is the same police force that has an abysmal detection rate. If they don't catch people doing the crime, they may never catch you at all because it looks like in Trinidad you can disappear into thin air after you've committed a crime and nobody finds you. Just yesterday, as I said, Pundit is robbed, car number plate is posted within minutes, nothing. Absolutely nothing is found. $40,000, I think it's gone. He's traumatized. His wife had a gun waved in her face. They threatened to kill her and so on. So while many would like to push the discussion into one of race, at no point in time did we name any person's race.
Well,
and
in that context,
if a particular race is proud to own those words, then they have to learn to deal with that.
If you're making these comments this morning, clarifying these comments, I appreciate the clarification. But if you are suggesting such this morning, is it that, one, you do not have any regrets about the comments that you made previously? And two, do you think that if that is the case, you should have communicated better, that words should have been chosen? Because if you are suggesting that what is being reported in the media is out of context, then it's open to interpretation.
I have read all, there were only 2 articles published, and I have read both of them. And none of the article alludes to any person's race. All the articles speak of a particular type of person that commit crime. And in this country, people get uptight, they get upset. And if someone whom I can't understand why good people will get upset when we call the criminals what they are, miscreants of the East-West Corridor. We're speaking specifically of Aranguez. And this is where the crime is being committed. Now, strangely enough, we had people from Aranguez being upset that crime, that we talked about it in this very clear way. Why? Because they probably have their own agenda. They're in politics and they need to soft soap a lot of other people. But you see, as men of the cloth, we have to be fair. The crime, the break-ins, when Mukesh was robbed coming from the bank, it was described as that. When the family lost $100,000, the same day the pharmacy owner was killed, it was described as that. When Pundit Satyanand was robbed yesterday, it's described as that. When just out from me, the plumbing shop was robbed the same way. The Ghani family, Easter weekend, terrorized for half an hour. Police killed 1 and 3 were later arrested. Look at those statistics. So when the police tells me that they don't have statistics, it's because they're not in the business of gathering statistics. And we mustn't, you see, the discussion is being moved from crime to one of race. And if we look at what a racist is someone who, for no reason, for the reason because someone is of a different race, doesn't like them because they have that particular race, and so on. What we need to do is really say is, the person that I am targeting most of all are the criminals and those who are practicing criminality. If people get all bundled up because they are upset that they belong to the same grouping, then I have to ask myself again, why are good people upset about bandits being called out for being bandits and criminals being called out for being criminals? No one group has the monopoly on criminality in this country. I believe in all groups. We have different levels of criminality and criminal behavior. Certainly, in wanting to push the discussion forward, I think that everyone has jumped on the race wagon because it's convenient. It's not the first time I've been called a racist, I must tell you that. When I speak of religion and I speak of the bias that we as Hindus experience in funding for religious activities and so on, that is actually termed to be racist as well. So in Trinidad and Tobago, we cry race for every little thing. And we bury our heads in the sand, and we fail to realize that there are a group of people in society who are falling through the cracks. They emerge post-pubescent, and they go looking for money, and they join gangs and things like that, and they're coming home to our homes. Now, I have briefly...
But let me ask you, you said that people want you to pin the tail on the donkey, trying to get clarification by what you are suggesting as urban youth. The question I'm asking you, seeing that you also said east-west corridor, is it that you are also suggesting that crime does not necessarily have a color or one color, criminals does not have one ethnicity? You've called out a couple of cases, but hold on, Pundit.
Go ahead.
We're very much well aware that not all crime is reported. Not all crime is reported. You see a lot taking place, and it's reported more on social media than even within the newspapers. So, urban youth could mean any individual, such as myself, such as an Afro-Trinidadian, an Indo-Trinidadian.
You keep leaving out the last two words that I said. And I think this
gang
is
members. You said gang members. Yes.
Gang members. So if you identify as an urban youth gang member, am I wrong in assuming that you are a criminal? Am I wrong? What is a gang member?
Yes, but a gang member could be anyone.
What does gang member mean? Well, no. The media has been attempting to put words in my mouth.
Well, I'm not. I'm actually seeking clarification from you. I'm using the quotations.
I'm clarifying it for you because you see, a lot of people are reporting on what was printed, but no one is taking the time to go back and look at the substance of what we said. We said so many other different things that the pundits were ready to go into communities. Pundit Brahmanan Rambachan is the one who actually said that East Indians were under attack. He is the one that came out and said it quite blatantly. He's not before the media defending himself this morning. I am. The police, again, quite disingenuous in that they claim that the statistics are not there. What they will not tell you is that they don't have statistics that disprove what we have put forward. And when we say urban youth gang member is not it's not a hidden language. We know that there are gangs in Trinidad and Tobago, and we don't describe a football team as a gang. We don't describe a sporting team as a gang. This is really organized crime. When 5 men jump out of a car and rob you and beat you for half an hour, that is well-organized crime. And in Trinidad and Tobago, we seem not to want to have to face the monster that we have created over the years. This is not something that started yesterday. This is a product of a failed education system, a failed social rescue system where criminals are actually being bred. Young people are being forced into gangs and socialized into gangs, and they feel that taking the life of someone or beating someone to get their money is a way of living. And when we talk about it, we become the enemy of the state. We become the enemy of the people. And I am wondering if those same people who are making all those comments took the time to read or to listen properly. And I think if they do, they will more than agree with me, because I think just as many that disagree agree. Because while the police continues to say no statistics, we have victims, and the victims are real living people. And someone should go ask the Ghani family how they feel about that, and someone should ask Pundit Paintaram how he felt when they told him that his wife looks like she will talk, and they were pointing a gun at her head. We should find out from these people. These are real.
So you've suggested that yourself as well as other pundits are willing to go into the community, that spirituality needs to be brought back to the community. Do you think that, and in all fairness, you've clarified your comments this morning and you've kept to your position, but do you think that communities will be willing to accept such help? Do you think now that you all could be accepted by communities and communities will accept your help? Though you've clarified your comments.
let me clarify this particular statement. Again, in 2009, then Prime Minister Patrick Manning had commissioned a study that was later buried, and he felt, it had pointed out, it had found, I think it was 5 or 6 hotspots. It was a $5 million study to find out where were the hotspots back in 2009. 2009 would have been 14 years ago. And he had called the clergy together, and I was lucky enough to be in that meeting. He subsequently lost the election right after that, and that entire project was shelved. And his solution is that these communities that were lawless communities, pretty much, where the gangs had taken root and taken hold of the young people, needed God more than anything else, and he was willing, as a prime minister, to admit that. And he was also, because in attendance, I had attended at that time for the Mahasabha. In attendance were the then leader of the Catholic Church and members of the IRO and all these other organizations, many organizations, the Pentecostals were there, and so Pahu was there. And he had said that we want to fund you to go into these at-risk communities and put God into the people so that their sense of morality, their sense of ethics and so on will increase. And that was a long-term solution. And that is still the solution. As a man of the cloth, we believe that a stronger faith makes you a better citizen. It makes you a more moral citizen, a better worker in society, and so on. That cannot be bad. Schools need to do their part, but obviously parents are not doing their part. They are raising at-risk children. Those children in 2009 who would have been 10 years old are now 24 years old. And these people in these communities who are at risk are now the ones, and I'm not saying all of them. Some of them have gone on to join gangs, and they are the ones perpetrating the crime. People seem to want to deny this. It amazes me that, again, coming back to the police service, and we want to give as much service support as we can to the police service, but when they come with words that are chosen to throw everyone under the bus except themselves, I think the police service job is to police, being a service, and you are 4 months on the job as a senior superintendent with 34 years of experience, and you're telling me that you come into a job and the first thing you didn't ask for was the crime statistics for the area so that you would know how best to deploy your forces. I'm beginning to wonder if you know what you're doing at all. And I reached out to the gentleman when I just threw him under the bus, and we're happy to work with the police. We're happy to work with the communities. And when I say clergy, I mean the most plural sense, the sense that Patrick Manning meant it, that the different denominational faiths that exist in Trinidad and Tobago should be funded so that they can go together with the police in these communities.
Given how society is now, society has is very fearful. Everybody now is very anxious in their day-to-day endeavors and their activities. As men of the cloth, as spiritual leaders, and as leaders as a whole, do you think that such comments should have even been made in the first place? Because again, let me say, you're suggesting that people are taking it out of context and the media is not reporting the story in its entirety or out of context. You said the media has left out 2 keywords, gang members. But whilst those are on the table, those are factors on the table, do you think that these comments were ill-timed? Do you think that they were necessary?
Well, when is the right time? When more people get killed? How many more people must get killed? 5, 10? How many families must be robbed? 100? When is the right time?
But you see, Pundit, such comments doesn't probably actually help the situation or solve the situation. It adds to the situation, if anything.
Actually, not really. What are we doing this morning? We're talking, and we're talking about something that is hidden and buried, and left. You see, people have spun it into a race thing, and these same people are not incensed at the murder rate. 187. Last night I heard gunshots not too far from where I live, so it's probably gone up since then. How many more people must die in this country before we realize that we have a gun problem? How many people must die in this country before we realize we have a gang problem? How many people must die in this country before we realize that young people are at risk of joining gangs, children, young adults, teenagers at risk of joining gangs and their lives being shortened. What we are saying is that Trinidad and Tobago needs to be rescued. And the more we talk about it, apparently the response from the politicians, the response from the police service is that let's bury our heads in the sand and hope that it goes away. It's never going to go away. It's been getting worse. In 2003, if I'm not mistaken, or 2006, I stand to be corrected, our murder rate crossed 200. That was something that was unheard of before. Now a murder rate of 600 people seems to be perfectly acceptable. There are different levels of crime, mind you. And gangs war, they're both active participants and willing participants in their own war. But when there is a home invasion and someone is killed, certainly the people whose home are being invaded are not willing participants in that, and now they sign up for it and say, come rob me. So we need to be particularly careful about how we couch and how we say that it's getting bad. It's not just getting bad; it's getting worse. In that it's been bad for a while.
Mm-hmm. And let's speak about an issue which you said you've suggested that we tend to hide from, which is a race issue here in Trinidad and Tobago. How do we solve this issue? Because if you're saying that we need to be open and truthful with ourselves, and I agree, I think we need to be a bit more open with each other, and I think we need to recognize that there are issues that exist. In your mind, how do we resolve such issues?
I think government has a role to play in it. Now, there are two major races in Trinidad and Tobago. That is no secret. And both races are described by politicians as tribes who continuously vote for their parties that are run by people who resemble them, i.e. the PNM, the UNC. But no party, when they come into power, actually wants to resolve the race issues in Trinidad and Tobago because both parties benefit from tribal voting. The thing is that while we work well together and we get along well, in this sense, when we speak the truth on certain kinds of things like crime, perhaps, people get all clannish and really run back to their tribe and support whether they're bandits or not. It doesn't seem to matter to them. And this is what is amazing to me in this whole exercise, is that without reading and without listening, people are willing to draw a conclusion and point fingers at other people for being racist. So if you talk the truth, you talk about what has been happening, and I did not use any of the other words that would describe anybody else. I did not point to a race. I did not point, but it seems as though these words are exclusive and mutual to certain groups in the society, and they take offense for their criminal brothers and sisters. And how are we going to solve the problem? This is interesting. Like I said, that it's long term. We need to talk it out. You see, both groups have been brought here and left, basically, and there has always been a mistrust, and that hasn't gone away. Post-colonial, this is something we were saddled with from colonial times. Even the police force and the way they're structured, the police service and the way they're structured, these are all colonial relics that we need to deal with. So there is a large mistrust among our communities, and it is only when we talk it out, when we interact with each other, because we're still living in communities that are predominantly East Indian, predominantly Northeast Indian, and gated communities and so on, mixed villages. People have a different understanding. But that sense of respect and is still not there. That sense of, sorry?
So then in that light, as you said, we still live in a society where everybody becomes clannish. As a man of the cloth and as a leader, won't you suppose for yourself and for those who were also there, Dr. Brahmanan Ramachan, don't you suppose that though you were speaking on behalf of the community of Aranguez, that rather than even use the frame East Indian people, should you not have spoken for Trinidad and Tobago as a whole?
Well, we let us be very, very clear. And if you look at the press release for this press conference, it said that we are here to discuss crime in Aranguez. You know, we hear break-ins. You just Google crime in Aranguez, and you will see so many come up with whether it's the Guardian, the Newsday, or the Express. You see, facts are really a stubborn thing. They don't go away. When crimes are reported, they're printed in the newspaper. They remain there for a very, very long time. Once they remain online, you can get them. You can go to the archives and pull them out. Reported or unreported crimes. Living in Aranguez, we know the victims, and people tend to want to say, why weren't we discussing crime in Trinidad and Tobago? I live near Aranguez is a very small place, and I see my community that almost daily young people were getting killed. The gentleman who Mr. Ramjatan, who was interred yesterday, was 42 years old, and he had his life snuffed out. I had a conversation with him 3 or 4 days before he was killed. That really, for me, was a tipping point, because I know of so many others my farmers were robbed, coming back from the market, coming back from the bank, because I'm also president of the Farmers Association here in Aranguez. I have my pundits who are being robbed. We have to be very, very careful when we're coming home, when we're leaving, and things like that. And why wasn't I? I think that the larger thing now is that the public has extended to crime in Trinidad and Tobago, but when you talk about crime in Aranguez, which is predominantly East Indian, the victims are predominantly East Indian. In fact, I would challenge anyone to find someone who is not East Indian who was robbed in the same manner as the Ghani family, with that kind of brutality. Mind you, these people are not multimillionaires, and they were beaten because they didn't have money to give to criminals. I mean, these are people we know and people we grew up with.
Mm-hmm. Well, Pundits, I want to thank you for joining me on AM Prime this morning. The conversation, certainly, you've brought some level of clarification. I know that you're sticking to your comments and you justified why so. But thank you very much for your time. And, I can only hope that such actions in terms of trying to unify Trinidad and Tobago and unify communities in the fight against crime as a whole, that also happens and that also transpires.
I want to add one thing. We're not getting the same level of criminal activities being reported from St. Anne's or West Moorings or even places west of the Lighthouse. And I'm wondering why. Why? Is it that Aranguez is a place that has been targeted because we are soft targets? We're seen as easy picking. And, I want to make an appeal again to the powers that be, because as men of the cloth, we're not police officers. We're not licensed to use force. In fact, Aranguez has been in negotiation with security services to provide security for us. That's how scared we are. And we're asking them to not tell us about statistics, but to provide us with a level of security that we need at this time, so that we can go about our daily life relatively peacefully as we've done in the past.
Thank you, Pundit, for your time.
Thank you.
Take care. Keep well.